in an age where reputation will be your most valuable asset. I'd like to start by introducing you to someone whose life has been changed by a marketplace fueled by reputation. Sebastian Sandys has been a bed and breakfast host on Airbnb since 2008. I caught up with him recently, where over the course of several cups of tea, he told me how hosting guests from all over the world has enriched his life. More than 50 people have come to stay in the 18th century watch house he lives in with his cat, Squeak. Now, I mention Squeak because Sebastian's first guest happened to see a rather large mouse run across the kitchen, and she promised that she would refrain from leaving a bad review on one condition: he got a cat. And so Sebastian bought Squeak to protect his reputation. Now, as many of you know, Airbnb is a peer-to-peer marketplace that matches people who have space to rent with people who are looking for a place to stay in over 192 countries. The places being rented out are things that you might expect, like spare rooms and holiday homes. But part of the magic is the unique places that you can now access: tree houses, teepees, airplane hangars, igloos. If you don't like your hotel, there's a castle down the road that you can rent for $5,000 a night. It's a fantastic example of how technology is creating a market for things that never had a marketplace before. Now, let me show you these heat maps of Paris to see how insanely fast it's growing. This image here is from 2008. The pink dots represent host properties. Even 4 years ago, letting strangers stay in your home seemed like a crazy idea. Now the same view in 2010, and now 2012. There is an Airbnb host on almost every main street in Paris. Now, what's happening here is people are realizing the power of technology to unlock the idling capacity and value of all kinds of assets, from skills to spaces to material possessions, in ways and on a scale never possible before. It's an economy and culture called collaborative consumption, and through it, people like Sebastian are becoming micro-entrepreneurs. They're empowered to make money and save money from their existing assets. But the real magic and the secret sauce behind collaborative consumption marketplaces like Airbnb isn't the inventory or the money. It's using the power of technology to build trust between strangers. Because at its core, it's about empowerment. It's about empowering people to make meaningful connections. Connections that are enabling us to rediscover a humanness that we've lost somewhere along the way. By engaging in marketplaces like Airbnb, like Kickstarter, like Etsy, that are built on personal relationships versus empty transactions. We're literally beginning to realize that we have wired our world to share, swap, rent, barter, or trade just about anything. We're sharing our cars on Whipcar, our bikes on Spinlister, our offices on Loose Cubes, our gardens on Landshare. We're lending and borrowing money from strangers on Zopa and Lending Club. We are trading lessons on everything from sushi making to coding on Skillshare. And we're even sharing our pets on Dog Vacay. Now, welcome to the wonderful world of collaborative consumption that's enabling us to match wants with haves in more democratic ways. Now, collaborative consumption is creating the start of a transformation in the way we think about supply and demand. But it's also a part of a massive value shift underway, where instead of consuming to keep up with the Joneses, people are consuming to get to know the Joneses. But the key reason why it's taking off now so fast is because every new advancement of technology increases the efficiency and the social glue of trust to make sharing easier and easier. Now, I've looked at thousands of these marketplaces, and trust and efficiency are always the critical ingredients. Marketplaces that depend on transactions between relative strangers need some kind of device to let you know that Sebastian and Chris are good eggs. And that device is reputation. Reputation is the measurement of how much a community trusts you. When you think about it, It's amazing, right, that over the past 20 years, we've evolved from trusting people online to share information, to trusting to handing over our credit card information, and now we're entering the third trust wave, connecting trustworthy strangers to create all kinds of people-powered marketplaces. I actually came across this fascinating study by the Pew Center this week that revealed that an active Facebook user is 3 times as likely as a non-internet user to believe that most people are trustworthy. Virtual trust will transform the way we trust one another face-to-face. The difference today is that with every trade we make, comment we leave, person we flag, badge we earn, we leave a reputation trail of how well we can and can't be trusted. And it's not just the breadth, but the volume of reputation data out there is staggering. Just consider this. 5 million nights have been booked on Airbnb in the past 6 months alone. 30 million rides have been shared on carpooling.com. This year, $2 billion worth of loans will go through peer-to-peer lending platforms. This adds up to millions of pieces of reputation data on how well we behave or misbehave. Now, capturing and correlating the trails of information that we leave in different places is a massive challenge, but one we're being asked to figure out. What the likes of Sebastian are starting to rightfully ask is, shouldn't they own their reputation data? Shouldn't the reputation that he's personally invested on building on Airbnb mean that it should travel with him from one community to another? What I mean by this is, say he started selling secondhand books on Amazon, why should he have to start from scratch? Reputation is largely contextual. Just because Sebastian is a wonderful host does not mean that he can assemble IKEA furniture. The big challenge is figuring out what data makes sense to port, because the future is going to be driven by a smart aggregation of reputation, not a single algorithm. It's only a matter of time before we'll be able to perform a Facebook or Google-like search and see a complete picture of someone's behaviors in different contexts over time. I envision a real-time stream of who has trusted you, when, where, and why. Your reliability on TaskRabbit, your cleanliness as a guest on Airbnb, the knowledge that you display on Quora or TripAdvisor, they'll all live together in one place. And this will live in some kind of reputation dashboard that will paint a picture of your reputation capital. Now, this is a concept that I'm currently researching and writing my next book on, and currently define as the worth of your reputation, your intentions, capabilities, and values across communities and marketplaces. People are starting to realize that the reputation they generate in one place has value beyond the environments from which it was built. You know, it's very interesting when you talk to super users, whether that's super rabbits or super people on Stack Overflow or Uber hosts, they all talk about how having a high reputation unlocks a sense of their own power. On Stack Overflow, it creates a level playing field, enabling the people with the real talent to rise to the top. On Airbnb, the people often become more important than the spaces. On TaskRabbit, it gives people control of their economic activity. You know, at the end of my tea with Sebastian, he told me how on a bad rainy day, when he hasn't had a customer in his bookstore, he thinks of all the people around the world who've said something wonderful about him and what that says about him as a person. He's turning 50 this year, and he's convinced that the rich tapestry of reputation he's built on Airbnb will lead him to doing something interesting with the rest of his life. You know, there are only a few windows in history where the opportunity exists to reinvent part of how our socioeconomic system works. We're living through one of those moments. I believe that we are at the start of a collaborative revolution that will be as significant as the Industrial Revolution. In the 20th century, the invention of traditional credit transformed our consumer system and in many ways controlled who had access to what. In the 21st century, new trust networks and the reputation capital they generate will reinvent the way we think about wealth, markets, power, and personal identity in ways we can't yet even imagine.